What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. This is the video I said I was going to talk about the hardware that was announced at WWDC. There were only two pieces of hardware, both of which I'm excited about, one of which I'm kind of skeptical of. Let's get right into it. Also, I didn't mention in the last video, but how do you guys like this 2:1 aspect ratio? I kind of figured I would try this out, considering that, well, YouTube on the iPhone kind of works better this way, and even on taller phones. Anyway, that's enough about that. Let me know what you like, if you like the 2:1, and we'll get into the hardware for WWDC. Let's go. So the first thing, and I think the least controversial thing that came out of WWDC in terms of hardware, was the Mac Pro. And it is still kind of controversial, but I'm thinking that it won't be nearly as controversial as the other piece of hardware. So let's just talk about the Mac Pro as it is, and I'll give my thoughts on it, and you can give your thoughts in the comments. I want to know. So it is very, very, very rare that Apple ever admits that they're wrong, but by going from the small trash can form factor up to a full-fledged PCIe expansion desktop, I think that's pretty much what they did here. In fact, this harkens back so hard to the cheese grater, to the point where it actually looks more like a cheese grater than the old cheese grater, and I love it. I think it is a brilliant design. I love the look of it. The space frame stainless steel chassis with the aluminum body. I absolutely love it. And one of my favorite features is the handle. The way that you take the case off is a twist handle on top. Like, somebody must have read my wish list for Mac designs to come out in the future, because having that design not only harkens back to the cheese grater Mac Pro, but it also harkens back to my favorite Mac of all time, the G4 Cube. That is one of my favorite designs. You flip it over, you press a button, the handle comes out, and you lift all the components out. This is basically that design the other way around. You turn a handle, you lift the top, and the whole top comes out, and there's your hardware. And speaking of hardware, this thing can be a monster. You can go up to 28 cores on an Intel Xeon processor, and it's of one of their updated architectures that was literally announced at the same time as this Mac Pro. You have up to 1.5 terabytes. That means that you are composing 1.5 terabytes out of 128 gigabyte RAM sticks. That is insane. 128 gigabytes in a single RAM stick, and you have enough of them to make 1.5 terabytes of RAM. That's, oh my god, that's insane. When it comes to graphics, a ton of graphics options. You have either an RX 580X or a Radeon Pro 580X, which is basically just a pro grade version of the 580. It's alright, it's fine, whatever. You also then have a single EVGA, no, not EVGA, I'm sorry, they are not talking with NVIDIA. Radeon Vega Pro 2. So that's kind of neat. Actually, that's really neat. A single Vega 2, really cool. You can also get a dual Vega Pro. It's called the Vega Pro 2 Duo, I think is what it was called, or something like that, where it's two Vega Pro 2s on a single PCB. And you can have two of those cards in the same machine, meaning you can have 4 full-fledged graphics cards in a single machine. That is mind-blowing. That is insane. I love it. I absolutely love it. You also have a 1400 watt power supply, which is just stupid. The last one, I think, had like a 700, if that. It wasn't a very powerful power supply. It was enough to run what was in the system, and clearly was not meant for expansion. This, on the other hand, is very clearly meant for expansion, and we'll get into that now. You have so many PCI Express card slots. You have enough to fit 4 double width cards. Now, if you go with one of Apple's included MPX modules, which is what they're calling the passively cooled Radeon Pro 2 Duo cards that they're making, if you have one of those, it does take up 2 slots, which means that you are actually trading the slot space for the cooling. But that's not really an issue, considering the fact that you can then take those cards out or upgrade them later to something that's more traditional. But you have 4 dual width PCI Express card slots, and then 4 single width, and then a half width at the top that's designed for their I/O port. It's awesome. It's the expansion that people have been asking for with these Mac Pros for years, and it's finally here. You also have 2 of what I'm assuming are going to be proprietary pinout sets of SSDs. I don't know if they're going to be proprietary or not, but I know they start at 256, which I'll get into in a minute, and they go up to 4 terabytes on a dual set in RAID 0. So pretty impressive top end, not so impressive low end. Let's just talk about it now before I forget. So the machine comes with 256 gigabytes of storage, and I think they do that because Apple is intending for a lot of these houses that are buying these machines to put a lot of their stuff on a server. So the internal SSD is probably only really intended in those use cases for the software they're running and Mac OS, and maybe a couple temporary files. So I can sort of see why they put that in there, but also on the same hand, I think it's still a bit skimpy for what it could be in the long run. And this thing is big. Look at it next to my iBook. It is nuts. It is a massive machine. A lot of people have said it's about the same size as the original Cheese Grater Mac Pro, which is good. If it has that much expansion and it's the same size as the Mac Pro original, that is pretty awesome. That means that it is going to be so much more expandable, and it's a 40-pound machine. You can get wheels for this thing considering how heavy it is. It's awesome. It's a machine that people have been asking for, obviously. And it's awesome. I keep saying it's awesome, but here's the thing. I'm not going to own one. And in fact, you probably won't own one. Most people who are in the prosumer market are probably not going to own one of these unless they are one of the high-profile YouTubers. And here's why. This machine starts at $6,000. And for $6,000, you are getting an 8-core Xeon, which is not much of a slouch, though it will kind of be slower. Actually, will absolutely be slower than the iMac Pro. 32 gigabytes of RAM, which Linus called pedestrian on his channel, but I still think is quite a lot. I have 32 gigabytes of RAM in all my systems, and I still consider that a lot. The Radeon Pro 580X, which is pretty much the same card you get in the iMac, not the iMac Pro, the iMac. And you get 256 gigabytes of storage. And all of that in this super expandable enclosure, $6,000. But here's the thing. It's not really meant for what I would use it for. It's not really meant for what a lot of you would use it for. In fact, the Mac Pro trash can and the original Mac Pro, both of those are probably more likely to be useful to you or to me than a machine like this. The reason why people buy computers like this is that they are designed to be bought, put in a studio, and they will sit there for a decade, and people will just upgrade the components as they need new things, and that's pretty much going to be the end case for this computer. And I get it. And it was originally sort of what a computer kind of like the Xserve was designed for. It was meant to be kind of bought at a minimum spec or bought at a medium spec, thrown into a rack, and forgotten about. In fact, they are even making cases that will fit into a rack specifically for this, which means that technically this Mac Pro is not just a new Mac Pro that we've all been asking for, but it is also sort of a revitalization of the Xserve. Anybody else asking for an Xserve? Anybody? Anybody at all asking for another Xserve, or is it just me? It's probably just me. Yeah. So yeah, this is a actual professional computer. They are not making this for the prosumer. It's a pro computer, period. And for anybody who wants to say that they're overpricing it, anybody who wants to say that they are charging way too much for it, you're not their market. And I have mixed feelings about that. I think that they've pretty much well satisfied the pro/prosumer market by going with the i9 iMac, the Mac Pro, or the iMac Pro rather, the Mac Mini, and the MacBook Pro. I think all of those kind of happily make up most of the prosumer market, and I think a lot of prosumers, myself included, are more than happy with systems like that because Thunderbolt 3 is a perfectly good means of expansion. And you also end up having some pretty good expansion options even on the Mac Mini when it comes to upgrading RAM, and you have some pretty high configuration tiers where you pay more up front, but this is the kind of machine that you pay a lot up front and a lot down the road, but it lasts you 10 years. Most computers nowadays will last you 5, 6, 7 years, and those 5, 6, 7-year-old computers, when spec'd properly, will basically not have to be opened up or touched ever. And by the time they're obsolete, the hardware you would be upgrading them to doesn't matter anymore. So overall, my thoughts on the Mac Pro, it's what we've been asking for. It's what a lot of pros have been asking for, rather. And I think that it hits the mark perfectly, and I don't think that it's for any of us. I think it's for actual professionals. So I'm not going to be getting one. I think it's an awesome machine. It's freaking massive. It's cool, and I can't wait for the price to come down in 7 or 8 years to actually buy one and mess around with this really cool design. I just think it's really cool because it looks like a cheese grater from the future, and it opens like my favorite Mac of all time, the Power Mac G4. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Now we get into the more controversial option, the Pro Display XDR. And my thoughts on that are mixed. It's huge. It's a 32-inch 6K monitor. And the color accuracy is insane. It has a ton of reference modes, and you only get the display when you buy it. And it's $5,000. So technically it's a 6K display. $6,000 for the display and a stand. And then, you know, it's a 6K monitor. It's a bad joke. I've seen the meme, but I figured I'd bring it up. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the display itself is really cool. But I think that the market they're aiming for kind of neglects the market that was asking for this display. In the case of the Mac Pro is legitimately used by professionals regularly. Even the little trash can was used by a lot of professionals. The big cheese grater was used by professionals. That was a pro-level desktop that at the time also just happened to be affordable by the regular prosumer and casual user market. This, on the other hand, it's not exactly what we were asking for, and the market that was asking for it were the people who wanted another cinema display. The cinema displays were great displays, they were affordable, and they were extremely well made, and they had a webcam, they had a speaker, they had all this stuff. It was awesome, and they were exactly what a lot of consumers wanted, and professionals. But professionals who really needed this level of display would go to another company to get those displays. Like, that's just how that worked. So Apple's target market is the companies that would buy a 43,000 or, well, the 43,000 one they demoed actually can be found a lot cheaper depending on what you get. But either way, they're aiming at the $20,000 to $40,000 display market and killed the price with a $6,000 monitor. And I'm just saying $6,000 because a lot of people are probably going to need a stand with this. And if you buy the $5,000 monitor on its own and get a $200 base amount, good for you. Congratulations, you saved some money. Or, in a lot of cases, you just have your own stand that you're going to hook it to. Actually, no, it's a proprietary stand, so you still have to buy something. So really, they are nickel and diming you. It's stupid. But I think for the people who were asking for a display, they were not the market that Apple ended up aiming for. Apple, of course, like I said, aimed for this massive display, pro-grade, all of this fancy technology market that spends $40,000 on a screen, and they're like, we've done it for $7 or $6 or $5, whatever. They aimed at that market, not realizing that the people who are asking for the displays are the people who want to spend $1,000 or $800 on a monitor that is better than the average monitor, but not so great that it's something that has to be a $5,000 display. I mean, the specs are impressive, except for the ports on the back, which I'll talk about in a minute. The specs are very impressive. It's a 6K monitor, which is just mind-boggling. It has an incredible cooling system on the back that means that it can push out 1,000 nits consistently and 1,600 at its max peak brightness. All of these reference options for the different colors, for photo editing. It can be rotated to portrait mode. It's awesome. It's a great, high level of technology packed into this really thin display, which it's thick compared to a lot of Apple stuff, but thin compared to most other monitors. It's got that cheese grater design on the back, and on the back, those ports. One Thunderbolt 3 input. And I say one because you see 3 display ports there. They're not display ports. You have one connection that is at Thunderbolt 3 speeds. 3 connections for USB 2 speed USB-C. Why? Why did you make a display that expensive and put USB 2 wrapped in a Thunderbolt 3/USB-C port? Like, why would you do that? It's for peripheral? Bleh. I'm getting so worked up. Hold on. It's not for peripherals because you would use Bluetooth. And if you want to use USB, you're using full-size USB. You're not using USB-C. So I don't know why they did that. So technology-wise, the screen's cool, but it's missing the market. And the display stand, they announced it horribly.
The VESA mount adapter will be $199 and the Pro stand $999. And like the Mac Pro, they'll all be available in the fall.
Yeah, here's the display, and also here's the stand. Anyway, next, Apple. People hate us as Apple users enough because you perpetuate this stereotype that you're more than happy to nickel and dime us, and we're more than happy to pay that amount. Don't make it that easy for them to perpetuate this. You do it yourself. They don't even have to work for this one, and I'm so frustrated with that. Let me show you something real quick. Give me just a second. I'll be right back. This is a counterbalancing. Look at this. It's a counterbalancing hinge. So when you mount a display and tip it, it keeps that display at the same angle. That's what this is. It's a counterbalancing display mechanism. It's literally the same type of mechanism they use on that $1,000 aluminum stand. Like literally the same. It counterbalances. You can see the head spins. It's actually really cool. I like the design, and you can actually kind of change it, but there's no extra weight, so it doesn't really hold its position much longer. But that's what this is. Do you know what this is from? This is from a 17-year-old iMac G4, and they're charging $1,000 for a revolutionary design that came out in 2002. I could rant about that, but I won't. I think the stand's a ripoff. I think the monitor's phenomenal. I think if you're going to get it, buy with a base mount, put your own stand on it. Done and dusted. Mac Pro, freaking awesome. I think they did a great job at WWDC announcing that. I don't think they did a great job announcing the display because it's got a ton of technology. And at the end of the day, neither of these products are for me. I doubt any of these products are for you guys if you're watching it. But for a pro level, like editing house or photo editing studio or whatever, the Mac Pro would definitely be a bargain. The display might be a bargain. I don't know. I'll have to see how it goes. I don't think Apple's really betting on selling these in droves. I think they're betting on selling these to a very specific market. And I think for that, they're probably going to do all right. Either way, guys, that's been my kind of recap on my thoughts of the hardware. Also, I do one last thing. I think it's going to be funny when you go to spec out these Mac Pros, and you can probably easily get it into the $20,000, possibly $30,000 range. That will be interesting to see and pretty funny. Either way, guys, that's my thoughts on the hardware that was announced at WWDC. Two things, not too bad. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm more than happy to kind of go down there and read because I'm not going to get spoiled on anything for any other content that I'm currently watching. So leave comments. Don't spoil anything now that I've brought that to your attention. Why did I do that? But let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I will see you all in the next video. Make sure to be there. Make sure to like and subscribe. I always forget to say that. And I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.